please help me welcome Frank Conniff!
Thank you. Let's hear it for everyone in Top Story. Come on! They're awesome! Oh, I've done this show a few times before. It's always a blast to be here and do this show. And I actually, and it was raining out. And by the way, thanks for coming out in the rain because, you know, LA people, it's raining, we can't go anywhere. But you people are here. And I was really in a hurry to get here. And sure enough, I was pulled over by a cop. Yeah, well, he let me off with a warning. He said, "Don't see that new Cher movie." And I'm like, not into horror movies. Actually, you know, since it's a Cher movie, it's called Burlesque, and since it's a Cher movie, it has a special appeal to gay people. Gay people love Cher, but apparently a lot of gay people went to see it, and it was horrible, and it kept getting worse, and it kept getting worse, and it kept getting worse, and so in the middle of it they showed an It Gets Better video. No one believed it, so then it got worse again. You know what? It's too bad because it's a musical, and you know, like I love that last "Baby It's Cold Outside." I love that. I really like musicals actually, and you know what I think is a trend in movies now that I approve of is sing-alongs. You've heard about this, right? People go to see like The Sound of Music and West Side Story and Grease, and people sing along, and I like that because it kind of enhances the communal aspect of movie going. And another thing they have now along that same vein is the Mamma Mia Mass Suicide, which is for people who are thinking of stepping over to the next world, need something to encourage them, and then Pierce Brosnan singing ABBA, that's just what they need. Actually, the big trend in movies, the biggest thing in movies these days, let's face it, Twilight, right? Kids love the Twilight movies, because it's young and it's sexy and romantic, and like the vampire, he's kind of dreamy, and then the werewolf, he's got hairy junk, and women love that. And so I'm trying to cash in on that trend. I've been pitching a project around town. Teen Count Chocula. It's a younger, much more sensual take on the whole Count Chocula mythos. He bites women and they get type 2 diabetes. It's very sexy. But like I said, I don't like horror movies, especially the trend now are those like really intense, really violent ones that are like come out in series like Hostel and Saw and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know what the critics call those movies? Torture porn. Torture porn, and it's true because they have scenes of intense, gratuitous violence, and they give me an erection. And actually, I have like a kind of a special treat, like kind of a behind-the-scenes Hollywood, because you know me, I'm a real Hollywood player. Like I'm very tapped to this premise should be believable, but no, it's true. And I actually, they're working on all these horror movies, and I got the coverage, what the studio does of, the studio gives notes to the screenwriters who are working on these movies, and I put them down and I transcribed them into my Moleskin, which is the notebook that Hemingway and Picasso used to write hacky jokes. So, so here is the coverage for Hostel 3, which they're working on now. Overall, we are loving the script, but we feel that once the sexy co-ed is thrown into a meat grinder and her flesh is torn to shreds, she ceases to grow as a character. Those are the kind of things you have to work on when you're developing something in Hollywood. This is from the new Saw movie, which the title, I think the title is going to be Saw 7 or 8, to tell you the truth, we're not sure. Here's some coverage. We just like to say that we think the scene where the frat boy's torso is gutted until his intestines spill out of his mouth is really well written. So you see, they can be very encouraging. And also, I have the coverage for Halloween 3, which they're very excited about because it's only the third Halloween movie since the seventh one. So they're really, they just do that. They just start over again. They're like, oh, so forget the other ones. But is there anything we can do to make the deranged psychopath who decapitates the entire sorority house more likable? Perhaps he can be given a wisecracking, lovable orphan that he takes under his wing and passes his knowledge on to. We see this as a potential Karate Kid for serial killers. Let's see if any of Will Smith's kids are available. Oh, and here's one thing is, here's the coverage on this bit that I'm doing. Frank's horror movie studio coverage bit. We feel that this has gone on too long. Especially this part, which is very meta, in a smug, self-referential way. We recommend that he moves on to the next bit. Okay, well, I'm part of being a professional is taking notes, ladies and gentlemen. I know that, there's a really good turnout tonight despite the rain, and I know that can all be attributed to that I tweeted about it. And I've really been into Twitter and Facebook a lot lately. And you know what I think has been the key to the success of Twitter and Facebook? I think it's been computers. I think it's played, especially the internet, because Facebook and Twitter have been around for a long time. Twitter was around in the 1800s, except back then it was called the Pony Express. And the only problem with that was that if you had a really funny tweet about the James K. Polk administration, by the time it got out there, Chester Alan Arthur was president. Folks, I'm not afraid to speak truth to power here tonight. And I'm not afraid to take on the James K. They told me to do political stuff. And I have one more thing that I want to, before I go, that I want to share out of my moleskin. Sometimes I like to take some time out of my act to pay tribute to people in the history of comedy and humor who have come before me. Now, are you people familiar with Irma Bombeck? Sure. Irma Bombeck she was big when I was a kid. She was very interesting story. She was just an average, everyday suburban housewife, and she wrote these columns that people really enjoyed, and she took like gentle, everyday humor from her suburban life and just put them in columns, and people love them. And here's just for some of you might not be familiar with that kind of like gentle, humorous style. I'm just going to read a few excerpts. This is from a very typical column of hers. When I pack a lunch for my kids, it's usually a peanut butter sandwich and an apple. But as far as they're concerned, a balanced meal is candy, cake, and ice cream. Kids, they're really something, aren't they? Some kind of like everyday humor. Like, here's another typical column. After a full day of raising my voice to my kids, I am sick of talking. So at night, in bed with my husband, it's almost a relief when he drops his balls into my mouth. It's like, people just related to. And here's another typical column. For Father's Day, I bought my husband a belt, and sure enough, typical male, he uses it to choke himself while he masturbates. He claims it enhances his sexual pleasure. Well, in that case, I should be having multiple orgasms, because this suburban housewife shit is suffocating me! Thank you very much.